Hey, welcome to Widow Too Soon. This is Mark Massaro. I'm here with my friend and co-host Michelle Bader Ebersole.
Good, good.
Perfectly executed.
And this is like the fifth
So proud.
episode we're talking about it. Are people getting
Yep.
tired of it?
No, they
Yeah.
understand that I'm not good at speaking. I'm working on it, one episode at a time. So,
Nice.
what's up, Michelle Bader Ebersole? How are you?
I'm good. So let's see what's been going on. It was only like 5 days ago we recorded last,
Yeah, I think it was
but
less, but yeah.
maybe less. But there have been some things going on. So I cut my hair. That was like in a girl world,
Nice.
that's a major thing. Like I cut off like 9 inches.
Oh,
So that was
wow.
like a really, really big deal. And I was having a little bit of grief. No, honestly, I did have this weird thought. Like some of this hair might have been here when Luke was alive that I'm about to cut off. Like I had these
Oh, whoa.
weird thoughts, but I was like, no, I'm not letting that stop me from cutting my hair. So that was, this is in the girl world, this is a big deal. You have to find a new hairstylist. Like I didn't have one. It was just a whole like scary day, but it was good. So that, I know everybody out there cares about that. So it's, like a fake story.
Super. Yeah. That was a great story.
It was a great story.
I saved a snake's life.
I know. I love it. It's great. Let's see what else happened. So bigger than a haircut is my kids started school, and Haley started her senior year and Peyton her sophomore year. And I definitely had grief on the first day of school, like leading up to it, because she painted. I think I talked about last week or last time about how she was going to paint this parking spot, and she did it. It says, "You are my sunshine," and she dedicated to her dad. And then I found this video of when she was a baby and they were singing "You Are My Sunshine," and then I made it into this beautiful TikTok video. It's so cute, of
That's
them
awesome.
singing, and then it shows a
I think I
picture
saw
of
your
her.
post.
Yeah. I posted that, and then I made another video. Anyways, I was having like some grief that day. Just like, man, I wish he was here. Like, I wish that Luke could see her start her senior year, and just kind of having some grief about that. But happy for them, and so awesome. I don't drive at all for school anymore. She takes, well, it's kind of like her car now. So she takes them in the morning. I sleep in. It's wonderful. I'm not one of those like super moms who gets up every morning and makes them breakfast. No, I didn't even make breakfast the first day, but I got up with them the first day. But now they're on their own, so it's kind of awesome. It's just like a new phase of life where I don't have to stop my day to go pick them up or to drop them off. So that's been cool. Been really busy planning this retreat that we have going on in Vancouver in October. We opened up registration, and it's exciting. We have podcast listeners. We have one from Iowa flying in, two from Montana, and then like other places. Oh, I've got someone from California, like all over. These people are flying into the retreat. I'm so excited. And
That's
someday we will have
awesome.
a big one, but like today I had a 2 hour meeting about that. So I've been really busy with that. And then Joel's been traveling, which is hard, but it's good because he got certified as a SICK. Do you know what SICK means? I'll tell you.
No, I
Second
don't.
in
You didn't even give
command.
me a chance,
Oh,
but no, I
sorry.
didn't. But no, I didn't.
I didn't either. Second in command. So he has been trained now to be a co-pilot in like a big jet. So he made
Wow.
like a big jump from his smaller Cessna to a jet. It's a big deal.
Wow.
He studied a lot, and they went down to Carlsbad, California, and he did 2 days in a simulator, and then he's certified. And then he came home, and then he had to fly out to inspect somebody's plane in Missouri, which is where he is now. So he's been doing a lot of traveling, which I don't love, but it's good. It's all good for his career. So I'm super
Yeah.
excited, super proud of him, because it's a big deal. He's like, co-pilot is like of a big jet is a lot of work. Like there's so much you're doing and remembering. He's these big, thick books that he's studying all the time. And so it's a huge deal. And so I put this little sign on the door when he got home, "So proud of you," and like
Mm.
made a big deal out of it because I know how hard that was for him. And so that's been a big deal in our world too, that he made a jump in his career and he's starting to fly for this like private jet and all the stuff. So very, very
So cool.
exciting. I know. I love it. I love what he does. I love that it just took a while in this area for him to get going, but I think we're good now. So,
Well, yeah,
anyways,
because he's trying to establish all new contacts and stuff like that, I'm sure.
yes, and he had a charter business in Louisiana, so of course he had to start all over. But now he's going to be working for someone else, and it's a big career jump. So super excited. And then he might train for like another jet. I don't really get all of it, but someday it means I can go with him places, which will be really fun because it's a big
That's
jet. And if they have
awesome.
room, he can just be like, "Can my wife come?" And then I can go with them, and it'll be fun. So,
That's super
anyways,
cool.
that's about. I don't have as much today. Wow, less than 5 minutes I got through my stuff. That was good.
Nice.
Yeah, so you must have the exciting
Fancy.
things this week. Tell me.
Yes. Well, for starters, you're not the only one, just so you know, that got your haircut. I also got my haircut.
I can
Looking
tell.
fancy over here. Got the sides all trimmed up.
Right?
I got my ears lowered.
Did you get 9 inches cut off like me?
No, I got like maybe
A
3/4 of an inch, maybe 7/8. I don't know. No, so and I got to fly an F-22 Raptor. I just ran some basic drills, no big deal. No, just kidding. And let's see, my daughter went on a field trip. So, like you said, it's only been a few days.
So we don't have tons.
Not much has happened, but somebody is flying in from my old hometown that I'm going to be showing houses to this weekend. So that's pretty exciting. I'm super excited about that. So all of you listeners out there, no pressure or anything, but I prayed for all of you a lot. So if you could say a prayer for me, I'd appreciate it.
Yes. Oh, wait, I want to mention this. I saw this. You made this really cool post about food.
Yes.
Just wait, I don't remember all the details, but basically about how you now, like when you started out, you didn't even know like how to cook for your kid. Like I remember talking to you in the beginning and there was a lot of fast food. Like you did Uber Eats and all of that a lot.
All fast food.
Yeah, I think I remember it was all fast food. And now tell the audience what you said in the post. Like basically now what?
So, okay, yeah. So first of all, I single-handedly kept DoorDash in business by myself. I'm pretty positive of that. So yeah, it was really overwhelming for me. And actually I was surprised by the amount of comments, of people that related that also had those same struggles when their husband first died. And for sometimes for different reasons, because they're used to, it just feels pointless to cook for one was one of the examples, seeing a lot of his favorite, ingredients at the store. And that was hard and things like that. But for me, I remember walking just up and down every aisle, like just getting things that I thought I should be buying. I'm like, oh, I guess I should get bread. It's good to have bread. I mean, I know how to make a sandwich. I'm not, totally dense, but like I just didn't know how to grocery shop. And I was just throwing away tons of stuff because it was going bad. I didn't know how much to buy. It was just a struggle for me. And it's funny now as I talk about it, it's hard to like remember because I feel like I've conquered it so much. But I do remember that. And I remember walking up and down every aisle and just looking at pastas and just all this different stuff. And I just remember going, I don't know. And I like pushed the cart and I was like, I don't know how to do this. And I just walked out of the store. So, but after, 18 months of buying fast food and frozen food, I realized like I can't continue this, I need to teach my kids about calories and macronutrients and all these things that I do know. So yeah, I've, over about the past year or so, I've really, dug in and conquered making dinner. So yeah, I make my kids healthy foods and they like to eat healthy now. And it's really cute when my 7-year-old boy is like, no, thanks. I don't want ice cream. I'm going to choose something healthy. I'm like, yes, I am like winning, So anyways, so that's, that was what the post was about is just, I wanted to encourage other widows and widowers, obviously, but that's a small percentage of our audience, to maybe talk about something that makes them feel proud of themselves that they conquered. And I know, Michelle, you went through a lot of that stuff in the beginning. Things that were difficult and whatnot that you conquered and learned how to do. And I know Tina's been through it and all that. And she's conquered a lot. She built a fire pit in her backyard, like really cool. Not just some little cheesy one. Like she built this awesome like fire pit area in her backyard, and it was really cool. So, I think it's I think it's a proud moment when anybody in this situation can persevere. Yes. Be strong and fight through the stuff that gets thrown on our plate. So anyways, that's what that was about.
Nice.
So, today, our episode, we have actually somebody who's become a friend of mine through the podcast, David Haraughty, who is a widower like myself. And I can't remember exactly how we met. I remember you reaching out and sending me a message, David. And I just liked you right away. I don't know what it was. I think it's just, feeling Christ like exuding through your words. I just took a liking to you. And so I've enjoyed following your story. But anyways, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
Awesome. Well, it's nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for
Appreciate
Thank
it.
having me.
you.
Yeah, yeah. So David and I have been talking about this for a while, and with Michelle and I's schedule and other guests we had lined up and different things,
Mhm.
it's been a little, it's been a couple months that we've been planning this. But David is here
Yeah.
with us today. So,
Mhm.
David, why don't you, if you wouldn't mind, just tell us a little bit about your story and wherever you want to start. If you want to tell us how you met your wife and what you've been through and things like that. So, give it to you to take away.
Well, I met my wife shortly out of high school. We were married, would have been married 25 years. We were together
Wow.
27. So,
Wow.
um, kind of through a mutual friend of my brother. Um,
Mm.
he roller skated back in the day when still used to roller skate.
Yep.
And I would see her in there when I'd go pick him up in the evening from roller skating. And I was dating someone else. I didn't really pay much attention, but she always thought I was older than her, quite a bit older than her. But anyway, um, through a friend of hers, she saw me. Um, I'm a big car guy, so cruising. I don't know if you guys know what cruising is or if you're around that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
I'm also
back
a
in the
car
day, we
guy.
cruise and hang out. Well, she saw me out on a local cruising strip and pulled in and got to talking and um, took a liking to each other and exchanged numbers and had talked ever since. So,
That's
um,
awesome.
uh,
And so married after 2 years.
yeah, we engaged a year and a half, and yeah, 97, May 24th of 97, we got married.
Oh, that's awesome.
We have two kids. I have a 23-year-old son that's actually in the military, he's in the Air Force, stationed in Tucson, Arizona. And my
Nice.
daughter's 20, about to be 21. She's a Christmas Eve baby.
Oh, really?
And yeah,
Aw.
yeah, she'll be 21 this year. She's still in the house. She's going to college, but yeah, it's
That's awesome. Wow. And so I remember from your story. So before you get into what happened to your wife, because I
mhm.
think it's relevant to the story, can you share with us kind of what you have been through personally?
Yeah, I mean it does. The Lord allows you to go through things, and through those, He obviously doesn't make them happen, but He uses them for His good. I mean, it's beauty
Mhm.
from ashes. So
Mm.
in 2019, um, in September, the end of September, I was diagnosed with stage 3B colorectal cancer,
Mm.
um, which came out of the blue. I'm a competitive tennis player. At that point, I was running marathons, eating healthy. So, and that it just came out of the blue. But through the process of walking through that chemo, radiation, surgeries at the beginning of COVID, it went from, as many visitors as you want down to two, down to one, down to no visitors. So both surgeries I had, I was in the hospital by myself. No one could get
Oh,
in there.
Oh.
So yeah. But you learn a lot of lessons in that. I mean, God worked a whole lot of things through that. And just that's like a whole, it could be a whole other story, but just one thing that I took away from that was went to one particular moment. It was my fifth radiation that I had. I had 23 total radiation.
Whoa.
wow.
Um, and it was the fifth one I had in there. And of course, you guys know going into a cancer hospital, you don't have to guess what that person has. I mean,
Hmm.
Yeah.
there's some type of cancer. But it's just a
Mhm.
different feeling walking to a cancer hospital. But I'm sitting in the waiting room and it's just full of people waiting for CT scans and, their radiation. And there was a couple sitting across from me and she wasn't in real good shape. She was the patient because she had a bracelet on. And her husband wasn't in real good shape either, could barely get back to her to sit down. And she had a McDonald's cup and he was pouring another, you know, Dr. Pepper or whatever in the cup.
Hmm.
And I remember looking at him. I wasn't feeling sorry for myself, but I remember looking at him going, really? Really? I'm 43 at that time, and like I said, I was playing tennis and active. And the instant I heard myself say, "Really?" I heard him say, "Who do you think you are?"
Wow.
And that was a reprimand from the Lord, is different from anybody that I've ever had a reprimand. That was, it was harsh, but it was needed.
Mm.
Um, he just said, "Who do you think you are? You're no better than they are." And from that point on, I started looking at people differently.
Mm.
Like even the people that were in the waiting room. So it in a way, it kind of softened my heart to not my own story, but everyone else's around me, kind of.
Mm.
And it almost prepared me for my wife's passing in a way. I don't
Mm.
know that if I hadn't gone through cancer that I would be able to stand in her ICU room while she took her last breath, or actually her heartbeat for the last time, because that's ultimately what gave up was her heart. So, but within that whole cancer story, there's more that he taught me through that. But I don't know. It
Sure.
was,
Yeah.
you
That's
definitely don't want to
intense.
walk through it. You guys have walked through it. She didn't die of cancer, but I had cancer. So it's kind of like I told you, I can kind of relate, but not really, because you guys are caregivers.
Mm.
And as far as cancers, I got off easy.
Mm.
Colorectal's real, it's easy to fix. It's, if you catch it early, it's, you know, low recurrence of it coming back.
Well, that's an
So,
awesome perspective, but I
mhm.
can't imagine any cancer is easy. And going through
It's not,
chemo and
but
radiation and surgeries.
yeah, but that's one thing that he gave me was just perspective. Because
Wow.
you know how it is. I don't know what you guys went through as far as the chemo, but I was able to take chemo pills from home,
Oh.
and the radiation took me longer to drive over there, get set up on the table,
Oh,
and do the
wow.
radiation and go home. It took me longer to get there and go back home than it did. So there's people that are there 8 hours a day, sitting up in the second floor, hooked to an IV with three different types of chemo going through them. It's
Mm.
like I didn't have to see the hospital, but 5 days a week for 12 minutes,
Mm.
and I got to go home. So,
I think that's awesome that you have that perspective, because we can kind of look at anything in life that way.
yeah,
Like,
you very
you
much
look at
can. Yeah.
other people or whatever. And so Luke, Michelle's
Hmm.
husband, did do chemo. My
Yeah.
wife Lacey did not.
Okay.
The chemo that they suggested to her was very low rate of her even surviving the chemo.
Yeah. It's
So it
bad.
was a
It's
very
bad
different
news.
story. She was terrified of chemo,
Yeah.
but so I understand, because there are a lot of different types of chemo out there, and
Hmm.
so I understand what you're saying. But so
Yeah.
before we get into, like, I just wanted, like, what was going through your head? Like, was there fear when you found out you had cancer? Were you afraid? Did the Lord take that from you, or?
Um, I've been asked that question. Actually, my therapist asked me that. Not really, no, in no time did I ever consider that I wasn't going to make it through cancer.
That's awesome.
A good friend of mine, James, was like, just, you're going to go through the treatment, just get through it, but you're going to come out on the other side, bud. You're going to make it. You're going to live till you're 80, 90 years old. And
Mm.
I never, I mean, there was times in the hospital where I asked him to take me because of the pain, and the with I had a ileostomy, so they had to pull part of my intestine out, to let my lower part heal, because they took 8 inches of my large colon out. So
Mm.
it was just getting through that and having to walk when you can't walk, and they want you to walk to try to get your digestive system going again,
Moving,
so
yeah.
you can leave the hospital. And mine was not cooperating for whatever reason.
Mm.
So both times in the hospital, I stayed in there for 7 days instead of three. So
And
Wow.
what was your wife like during this point? Like, as you were going through cancer, how was she reacting to that?
Um,
question?
not good because she couldn't. It's weird. Like the last surgery that I had, she dropped me off at the front of the hospital and
Oh,
was
because
just
she
like,
couldn't be.
"Call me when the
Wow.
surgery's done and you can come home." So it's like it was a weird situation where it's just
Mm.
you and the nurses walking the hallways. It's
That
like
is
a ghost town,
strange.
other than,
Yeah.
um, but I mean, she wasn't doing good because there's nothing. It kind of like her hands were tied because there's nothing she could
Yeah.
do
Right.
That would be
other than
so
call up
difficult.
there. But the nurses, I felt bad for the nurses because there was no family member to go get you ice chips or run and get you
Right.
water.
And
The
so
nurses,
everybody was also calling.
the nurses were having to do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I felt bad. So most of the time, I would just kind of I was way better off than most of the people in the surgical wing. So I was
Mm.
just, you know, I can handle myself and just do what I'm supposed to do, get up and walk. But
Wow, yeah, 2020 was a tough year.
it was, it
And
was a weird
so the
year for
three
sure.
of us together had similar
Hmm.
things like that, where it
Yeah,
was COVID caused a lot of
it did.
problems, to say
Yeah,
the least. We've heard that from a lot of listeners also.
yeah, it did.
What were you going to say though, Michelle?
Oh,
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, so when did you get the like clear of cancer? Like, how long did you go through treatments before you got that, and then kind of then maybe transition into a little bit about what happened to your wife, with your wife, and the time period in
Uh,
between that.
I had, I think it was 8 months.
Wow.
So I did chemo, I did radiation and chemo. I did radiation first to shrink the tumor and
Mm-hmm.
chemo. And then in March, I had surgery to resect, and then 6 weeks of letting it heal with the ileostomy. And then I went back in May 1st, which was the grace of God that I was even able to go back in because at that point I was not considered elective because people live with ostomy bags.
Mm.
Um, so my surgeon told me, he goes, you may not get back in for 6 months because of COVID.
Mm.
You're able to live with a bag. You're not, you know. So I was continuing to lose weight. So that's the only thing that kept me on schedule to go back in 6 weeks. So I got that reversed. And I'm still in the system. I'm clear. I don't have cancer. I'm clear.
Yes.
3 years
Great.
now. I'm in the
Praise
system for
God.
another two. I go in every 6 months and have uh, blood work done just to check the tumor markers and stuff. And then
Hmm.
every year I have a CT scan. So I do that for another 2 years. And after 5 years, they deem you clear and low risk of recurrence. So just
Praise
send you on your
God.
way.
Yeah, we'll be
Yeah.
praying for that.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of walking through this last. I mean, even in that, it's like um, there's lessons to be learned even in that. Because I mean, you could focus on the cancer. Is it going to come back? Is it going to come back? But
Right.
it's like you
Mm-hmm.
just can't live that way. So you have to give that to the Lord and just say, "Hey, it's in your hands. He got me through it. I'm still sitting here." Um,
And also, stress is really bad for your health. Your
it
health.
is. It
Like
is. Yeah.
scientifically proven that like people that are under a lot of stress and anxiety are more likely
Hmm.
to have cancer.
Oh yeah.
Things like that. And so that's
Hmm.
really good that you have that mindset. And so yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of piggybacking on what Michelle was saying. Uh, so it was 8 months
Hmm.
after your clear scan.
Yeah.
So what happened to your wife?
Um, Cleared scan and they finished off good end of into 2020. 2021 came around and everyone was healthy and good. And then, of course, COVID was still a thing. My daughter initially got COVID. She was the first one in our family to get it. Um, Flu-like symptoms, and then she was fine. A couple weeks later, I got it and flu-like symptoms, and then I was fine. She got it 2 weeks later, and she had complicating. She had a history of stuff that I guess she just had complications from previous 15 years ago. She had had bacterial pneumonia that put her in the
Mm.
hospital for 7 days in ICU with her lungs filled with fluid, and they suspect that's kind of what got her was the um, scar tissue, and just her
Mm.
lungs weren't back to 100%. She made a full recovery, um, but she just couldn't recover this time. So she got sick. We took her to a local hospital here, and they had her on oxygen for a little bit, um, but they kept increasing oxygen. And she had, from her being in this situation 15 years ago, innovated. Um, I kind of saw the writing on the wall of where it potentially could be leading. Although we were praying for her to recover and be fine and get out of the hospital in a couple of days. Well, that didn't happen. And then, of course, with COVID again, all the beds were full in the ICU, or just the hospitals didn't want to take her because she was COVID positive. So um,
Jeez.
they wound up having to send her an hour and a half away from Tulsa, where I live, to Yukon, which is almost in Oklahoma City. So we were having to drive an hour and a half to the hospital to get there. And by the time she called me to come back up to the hospital here in Tulsa, when I got up there, they'd already had her on a CPAP machine. So she went from oxygen to CPAP. So I'm like, okay, this is not trending the right direction. So um, took her by ambulance to that hospital, and just got her settled. And it was probably midnight, and we told her good night, and I'll see you in the morning. And by the time I got back home, an hour and a half later, the nurses had called and said they had to intubate her, so they had to put her on the vent. And they had asked her previous if it gets to that point, do you want to be put on the vent? And she said yes. So I'm like, okay, it's your decision. If that's what you want to do, then let's do that. Even with them saying don't put people on the vent, it was either that or she was gonna continue to her blood O2, oxygen level was going to go down anyway. So um, she stayed on the vent um, for 2 weeks. They did everything they could do. I mean, they were flipping her on her stomach, and that was a roller coaster for 2 weeks. Her oxygen saturation would come up, but it would never get above 90.
Mm.
Sometimes it got into the 70s, and she was
Wow.
on all the oxygen they could give her, the highest setting on the ventilator. So they just kept trying to flip her to see if the mucus would clear, and her lungs were just not clearing. So um, the Saturday of her passing, we got a call from the hospital, and her mom had flown in from Indiana and stayed in the hotel right next door. So the last week before her passing, we stayed in that hotel the whole week, so we could just walk across to the
Mm.
hospital. So we were at the hospital, and she called, or the nurses called about 6:30 and said, "Hey, you need to come up here. We can't get her O2, her oxygen up." So we went over there, and of course, at that point, we could visit her. You could go in her room. She was in the COVID, ICU, so you had to put on the mask and all the gear to go in there. So I went in there and was just talking to her, but at that point it was at 70%. I mean, they just couldn't. They were doing everything. They just couldn't get it to come up. So we sat out in the waiting room, and they came back again and asked if um, we would like to go ahead and administer comfort care, end of life
Mm.
comfort care. And I said, yeah, definitely would do that. And I even, had to go back and forth with, do I sign a DNR or do I not? Initially I signed it, but then I went in and talked to the nurse, and I was like, okay, just shoot me straight. What is this going to look like if we do this? And she said, it's not like TV. Um, there's going to be broke ribs
Yeah.
if we're having to resuscitate her. And the thing you have to remember is if we do get her back, she's not going to be in any better shape than what she was when she coded. She's going to be actually worse off now because now we broke ribs and she's going to be
Mm-hmm.
in pain. So I told him not. I told him try it one time if she does code, and then if she does again, then that's it. Let's just let her go home. So um, it was a couple hours later, and then they came out and told me that. And they said, "Do you want to be in there?" I said, "Well, yeah, absolutely, I want to be in there." And my daughter was there, and her mom was there, um, and they couldn't be in the room. They they
Mm-hmm.
they just couldn't be in there.
It's
So
hard.
um, it was, her lungs were doing everything they could do, just wouldn't keeping the oxygen up. So it was ultimately her heart that stopped. Because I mean, you can't keep 120 beats per minute heart rate for 2 weeks straight, 24 hours a day, and it's just going to give up. So
Mm-hmm.
by the time I went back in there and they were administering um, the comfort care, you could see her heart rate dropping and blood pressure was dropping. And but the thing that I would like to get across, kind of the whole message that I got, it was actually a divine revelation. As I walked into her room for the last time, um, it was much like your story when you were in the other room and you knew Lacey was gone. She just wasn't there in the house
Mm-hmm.
anymore. When I
Yeah.
walked in there, her uh, her left eyelid wouldn't stay shut, and before that, her eyes were shut, and it just looked like she was sleeping. But for some reason, her eye was like lazy eye kind of, and it wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
shut. So I kind of leaned over and just shut it, and it just kind of drew back open. And in an instant, I was thinking, "Oh, she's not here anymore. This is just her body laying here. She's not here." So as her blood pressure dropped, and, it got to 44 over, just super low. And I just leaned over and kissed her on the forehead, and I said, "Go be with Jesus. We're okay here. Just go be with Jesus." So ultimately, her heart stopped. She coded. They called her at 11:52 in the evening, and I just had them turn the ventilator off. I was trying to keep her going, so to speak, until her dad got there. He was on his way from Tulsa out there, and but she passed before he got there. So. Uh, like 15 minutes or so, but it was still, it's like, but it's just, it was like a light bulb moment for me, to realize that this thing that we're in, this fleshy thing, it's just, I call it, my wife now, Amy, uh, gets a laugh at it. I call it a meat vehicle because it's, our spirit is who we are.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
what goes to heaven. It's
Yep.
not this thing. This thing will fall apart eventually for everybody. It will
Yep.
fail. Um, in that instant, I knew it's like, oh, the Suzanne that I knew wasn't here anymore. She's in heaven. This is just her
Mm-hmm.
body laying here
Yeah.
now. So, um, and that was kind of a whole nother, I don't know, another stage, I guess, um, in my maturing in his faith of seeing the fulfillment of scripture. Like, this, she went to heaven and she's not in this body anymore. So you start looking at the world differently after that, just life in general. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so everything's got a purpose now, and it's a preparation for your home. And home is not here.
That's
As
right.
a believer, our home's in eternity with Jesus. So,
Mm.
um, there's only so much you can do. So much healthy eating you can do, and that's going back to the cancer part. It's like you can eat as healthy as you want and do everything that you need to do or think you need to do, but you still get sick. It's still going to fall apart at some point.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I've always said cancer doesn't care how nice you are. It doesn't care
no,
how healthy you are. It doesn't care.
nope,
It's
it does
a
not.
completely random monster that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, obviously there's a lot of effects of it, like our environment and our foods and all that stuff
Oh yeah.
obviously plays
Oh
a
yeah.
factor. But you just never know. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's guys that are, you know, in their 20s that are health freaks that they get diagnosed with stage 4 cancer out of nowhere. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's it's just one of those things you just never know. But I love your perspective. And it really does change a lot. Obviously, what you went through
Mm-hmm.
changes your heart and mind a lot, but also going through that with your wife,
Mm-hmm.
um, it really does give you a very changed perspective on the world, and it really gives you this understanding of just how temporary
It is. Yeah.
our bodies are,
Mm-hmm.
but how eternal our
Mm-hmm.
spirit and soul is.
Exactly.
And that's where the beauty of the great hope comes
Mm-hmm.
from. And I remember the same feeling. I remember looking at my wife and saying, "Whoa, like you're with him right now."
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, obviously I was talking to myself, but I remember that feeling, and it's just this powerful feeling that came over me that
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Oh my gosh, like the thing that we've, you know, been learning about our whole lives, and you know, our faith, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
this and it's like you're experiencing it right now, everything that we've looked forward to as believers."
Yeah.
um that's pretty wild. And so what was it like for you, let's say the first week, first month, like what was it like for you becoming a widower?
Um, I guess in one word, be numb.
Hmm.
Because in a lot of situations, well, a lot of married couple dynamics, usually the female does the finances or is in charge of the finances. And she did all that stuff. So I had to, much like Rob, where in, episode 82, where he explained his financial, where his wife did all his stuff and he had to like figure out the bank. And so I had to do all that on top of the funeral arrangements that we had not, who plans,
And
you know,
grief.
yeah, and grief on top of that. So, and my son, like I said, is in Arizona, so he wasn't here. He wasn't able to fly in to be with her when he didn't want to come in and see her like that. So
Yeah,
I
understandably.
kind of had to uh, almost put on dad's shoes, where I was more focused on them and making sure
Hmm.
they were okay. Her and my daughter were attached to the hip. I mean, they were best friends. So
Mm.
she's better. She's in a good place now, but she had to work through that,
Absolutely.
and grieve that. But yeah, it was just not. It was just like I can't believe this is happening. This is crazy, because it's different. I can relate somewhat to your guys' story, but and not because it wasn't instant, but it was. I mean, it might as well have been instant. It was 2 weeks, but even the 2 weeks, it did give us a little bit of time to prepare, like
Mhm.
mentally at least. Like, you know, we were fervently praying that she would be healed, and ultimately He did heal her. You know,
Yep.
He healed her.
Absolutely.
It
100%.
just wasn't here on earth. She's
Yeah.
complete healed now. So, but it was just that. Um, None would be the best thing. It's just
Hmm.
I had a huge family and friends support system that came alongside me, and that, you know, I got the funeral arrangements. We got that taken care of. I mean, the God worked it all out behind the
Hmm.
scenes without me even knowing, because it flowed, I guess, smooth. I mean, everything happened like it was supposed to, and um, yeah, you know, that's the one thing you can't ever get used to is a quiet home,
Hmm.
just real a dead silent home, honestly,
Yes. And I've never really understood this expression, but it's so silent, it's like deafening.
Hmm.
And I remember like kind of understanding that, even though for me, I got these two little kids running around, obviously, but
Yeah.
um, which are not quiet, but
I know, yeah.
it still felt And I guess maybe silent in my circumstance wouldn't be the right
Mm.
word. Empty. There
Empty.
was
Empty.
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
this empty void
I know
that
that.
was like, I don't get it. Like my kids are talking, but like, why does this feel so empty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I understand.
Yeah. That
I do
dynamic.
like I can understand what you're saying,
Hmm.
but I didn't experience the same absolute silence.
Yeah.
So what helped you get to where you are now? What helped you? I mean, obviously the Lord helped you, but like what gave you perspective? What were some of the things that maybe you could share with other widowers, or
Yeah. Honestly, it was that moment when I walked into her room and got the revelation that she was not here, that this isn't our home, this isn't where we end up.
Mm.
There's the saying, we're human beings in temporary spiritual experiences.
Mm.
We're spiritual beings with a temporary human experience,
Mm-hmm.
because the spirit's who we are. So just focusing on that. And grief share, me and my daughter did go through grief share. I
Nice.
actually went through it twice. I would encourage anybody that does go through grief share, and we went through it like a couple months after she passed, um, which it was good, but I wound up helping 6 months later in the next session that the church did, and I actually helped in that one. And I got more out of it the second time around,
Oh
because
wow.
I had walked through some of the stages that they were talking about on the videos, whereas before I had not. Being three
Mm.
months removed, I haven't gone through any of that stuff yet. So, but it honestly, it wasn't anything, because, honestly, a majority of the time, my daughter was grieving in her own way. She had a boyfriend, so being at home was hard for her. Being in the house, because mom was not here, so she had to grieve in her own way. So she spent a lot of time with the boyfriend and down at his house, because of the family unit down there. The mom, dad were still there, so it gave her a kind of a peace where she was able to work through stuff, versus just staying down here with me. And it's just weird. So most of the time I was here by myself. Oftentimes I tell people it's like you come home and you just eat, and then you listen to worship music, or you just sit and talk to God in a dark room, in a dark house by yourself. It's like, so I don't know.
It
It
becomes a
was just,
very strange existence.
it is, because you're just like, is this it? Is this all? And I'm just kind of in my mind, in a way, it was needed. It was needed in my case. It was like, um, he needed me to get to that place where I was fully committed to him and putting everything in him, as far as his faith and how he's going to work this out. So I just did that every night. Um, Went walking and stuff like that, but that was it. I mean, they say in grief share, it's like after the initial people around you go away, that's when you got to be ready, because then
Mhm.
you're in the silent room and you don't have, silent house by yourself. You don't have all your family and friends around. And that was true in my case,
Mm-hmm.
because my daughter was out doing her own thing, and the family and friends have got you, you're going, but it's like they got their own lives to live.
Yeah.
There's only so much checking up on you they can do. So a lot of times that was it. I was just kind of prayer, but that's what he needed. That's where he wanted me. I mean, it
Mm.
was preparation for where I'm at today. So,
Mm.
When
It's
do you
awesome.
recall a moment or time when you started feeling joy again? I mean, it may not be a
uh,
specific moment, but just like when did you start like, okay, I want to live life. You know what I mean? Like the joy
yeah, yeah,
coming
yeah.
back and
Probably, I would say probably 6 to 8, probably 6 months or so.
hmm.
Yeah.
And was there a
You just
specific thing that happened or just over time or how did you
Just
get to
over
that place?
time, yeah, just over time. And actually, grief share helped, because there were some couples in there, that were my age, and we stayed in contact and ate dinner and stuff like that, and would meet. Started playing pickleball with my father-in-law. That helped just get me out of the
Yeah,
house.
getting out of the house, community, that's
Yeah,
good.
community. Sure, I stayed engaged in church, and that's one thing with your questions that I would recommend people do is if you are engaged in church, stay engaged in church.
Yeah.
Mm.
Um, it's hard. My daughter struggled with it for a while because mom was not there, and her going to church without mom, it's like, I get it, but you have to re-engage at some point. Try
Yeah.
to re-engage at some point. So,
I remember Pastor Greg Laurie
mhm,
from Harvest in Southern
yeah,
California. I remember, so he lost his son,
yeah,
Jonathan, in a car
hmm,
accident. And I remember him saying that he went to church that Sunday.
hmm,
And not to preach, but he
yeah,
was in church. And he said a
hmm.
lot of people were like, I can't believe you're here. And he's like, where else would I
We
be?
go. Exactly. Yeah.
I need to be here. And so I was just like,
Yeah.
wow, that's right. Yeah, it's not like it's not like you're going to a ball game or something. I
Mm-mm.
mean, you're seeking spiritual
Hmm.
things, and
Hmm.
where better to find them than in the
And
house of the Lord, surrounded by fellow
oh yeah,
believers.
yeah.
So,
Especially the ones that know your story and where you're at. I mean, they can.
mm-hmm.
It gives them a chance to um, talk to you, see how you're doing. Because
Mm.
I related. I messaged you, and I did relate to your last podcast with you saying that you don't like asking for help either. And I'm the same way. I didn't want to burden people with that, but that's what he ordained. He wanted me face down with him,
Mm.
preparing me for the next season that I'm in
Wow,
right now. So
that's insightful.
yeah,
Were there any like specific verses or songs that helped you through this time?
yeah. Actually, three songs in particular.
Okay.
um, the first one, a good friend of mine, very dear friend of mine, um, they actually drove. They were one of the few people that drove to the hospital when she was in there. They drove 2 hours just to come pray in their car in the hospital parking
Wow.
lot.
Mm.
They didn't know that they could come in, but I said, no, no, you can come in. You just have to put the PPE on. So they came in and um, prayed over her through the window. They didn't want to go in and all that, but they gave me a song um, that we listened to pretty regular through that whole week. I actually played it at her wedding. Was "The Story I'll Tell"
Mm, good
by
one.
Maverick City.
Mm-hmm.
Naomi Rain sings it. Um, and then the other one was "No One Ever Cared for Me Like Jesus"
Mm.
Mm.
by Stephanie Greitzinger. And then there was another one that I listened to a lot. I still listen to it today. I actually listened to it today. Was "Seasons Change" by United Pursuit. Michael Ketterer features in the song.
Mm.
And then my
I'll have to
my
check
verse
those out.
is Isaiah 12. He gave me that um, scripture in a dream uh, 5 years ago, and that's actually on my headstone. So
Oh
And what does
wow,
it what
yeah,
does it say? What's it?
Isaiah 12. I'd have to look it up because
I can look it up.
Okay.
it's a lengthy
Okay. I didn't know if
scripture.
there's like one verse, but okay.
Oh no, I mean the whole thing kind of ties together, but he didn't give me he just gave me the whole
The whole thing.
Isaiah 12.
Oh, the whole
Yep,
chapter. Okay,
yep, the
okay.
whole.
Okay.
It's only like 13 verses or something. It's not very long.
Okay. These are the visions that Isaiah, son of Amos? I've never seen
Hmm.
Amos, probably.
Amoz?
Oh, then no,
Amos,
I don't.
yeah,
Oh,
Amos,
okay.
okay.
You're
yeah.
right. You're right.
Saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. He saw these visions during the years when Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah were kings of Judah. A message for rebellious Judah. Listen, O heavens, pay attention, earth. This is what the Lord says. The children I raised and cared for have rebelled against me. Even an ox knows its owner, and a donkey recognizes its master's care. But Israel doesn't know its master. Oh, my people don't recognize my care for them. Oh, what a sinful nation they are, loaded down with burden of guilt. They are evil people, corrupt children who have rejected the Lord. They have despised the Holy One of Israel and turned their backs on him. Why do you continue to invite punishment? Must you rebel forever? Your head is injured and your heart is sick. You are battered from head to foot, covered with bruises, welts, and infected wounds. Without any soothing ointments or bandages, your country lies in ruins and your towns are burned. Foreigners plunder your fields before your eyes and destroy everything they see. Beautiful Jerusalem stands abandoned like a watchman's shelter in a vineyard, like a lean-to in a cucumber field after the harvest, like a helpless city under siege. If the Lord of Heaven's armies had not spared a few of us, we would have been wiped out like Sodom, destroyed like Gomorrah. Listen to the Lord, you leaders of Sodom. Listen to the law of our God, people of Gomorrah. What makes you think I want all your sacrifices, says the Lord? I am sick of your burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fattened cattle. I get no pleasure from the blood of bulls and lambs and goats, And then when you come to worship me, who asked you to parade through my courts with all your ceremony? Stop bringing me your meaningless gifts. The incense of your offering disgusts me. I'm sorry. This actually. Did I? Yeah. What did I do here?
What book are you in?
I thought you said Isaiah 112.
No, Isaiah 12.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I'm trying to figure
I was
out.
like wondering.
I was like, I didn't want to stop you. I'm like, it sounds good, cool.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. Okay, what did you say it was then?
Isaiah 12.
Okay, y'all go look it up. Isaiah.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I was like sitting there wondering, and then I started feeling like I was getting to something. I'm like, wait a minute, this just keeps on going. Hold on.
No,
I'm so sorry. I totally misunderstood you.
Let me just read the first. It's the
Yes.
first three.
I should have just let you do that.
In that day,
You're like, what in the world translation is he reading?
I'm like, what is he reading? No, it's Isaiah 12. In that day you will say, I will praise you, Lord. Although you were angry with me, your anger has turned away. You have comforted me. Surely God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. The Lord himself is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. With joy, you will draw water from the wells of salvation.
That's good. That makes so much more sense too.
Yeah. I'm so red with embarrassment right now. Like
it's God's word. We heard more of God's word, so thank you.
Yeah,
That's
it was just a total like misunderstanding. I'm like, wait, what am I how long does this go? Like seriously, I'm glad I caught on to that because that went a lot longer.
I was like, what?
I thought you said it was. That's what I thought. I thought you said it was Isaiah 1 through 12 or something. Oh my gosh, whoops. So I got to like 12 and I thought he said 12 and then it went 13, 14, 15. Anyways, I apologize for that, audience and David.
No, it's awesome.
And Michelle, why not? Yeah. But yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Okay.
Yes. So
Oh, that's embarrassing.
it's all good.
Just kept on going. You guys are so patient and nice with me. You know, I'm excited to look back at this because I was looking at my phone reading. So I'm excited to watch this back and see the confusion on your guys' face.
I'm just like, okay.
I was just trying to figure out
That's
how
great.
this, like what it is that God gave you from these verses. Like
I was starting
figure
to
out.
feel at the end that it was kind of like, you know, like I don't need you, I'm the Lord, you know, because I think, David, you reached out to me at one point and told me that when I mentioned that in a podcast that it touched you, that I said, like, the Lord spoke to me and said, I don't need you.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe that's where we're going with it.
Exactly. We're going with it. Yeah.
That's
Wow. Oh
That's
my
all good.
gosh.
No,
Isaiah
that's
12.
Yes,
Yeah,
good,
good stuff.
Good verses. Okay, so moving on. No, that was
Yeah,
really
I'll
good.
just be quiet the rest of the episode. Just kidding.
That's so good. So, David, I heard you mention very quickly. You said Amy, my wife. So
Yeah.
obviously we've got a lot more of the story to hear.
Yeah, there's more of the story.
So you go through all this. God starts bringing joy back, and at what point are you ready to date again? And can you tell us your story about you
That's
and
the
Amy?
funny thing. It was a year and a month. Yeah, a year and a month. I was just face down with the Lord. I didn't even consider dating. I didn't. I was not. At that, I was 47, 46. I'm like, I'm not putting myself on dating sites. I'm not doing that.
It's not
Not
fun.
doing it. I'm not doing it. From listening to the podcast, I
Yeah,
hear
you
you
heard enough
guys,
from us.
yeah, Mark's like, nah, don't do it.
Putin
So,
says.
because
Yeah.
I remember reaching out to Mark at one point going, hey, any advice on that? And he gave me good sage advice. I'm like, I think the
Good.
Lord's got me in the place. This is where he wants me. So I'm just going to keep doing this. So I wasn't looking. I wasn't any of that. But like I said, he was just preparing me. And at
Hmm.
Mhm.
the same exact moment, he was preparing my wife now in a whole nother state, 14 hours
Hmm.
away to be exact. And I'm on Facebook, but not really, kind of shortened version. And I came across her reel looking through Christian content and her reel came up on there. I'm more on Facebook than I am Instagram. So I saw she was on Facebook. So I got on Facebook. She has a setup where you can't friend her. You can only follow. So same content on Facebook, so I just followed, and I didn't even think anything of it. It was just someone else to look at content. I didn't even know her age. I didn't, nothing. There, none of that was even a consideration. I was just so. Um, a month later, December 28th to be exact, she sends a voice message over Messenger, and I listened to it, and it was a heartfelt message. My daughter just posted something on her Facebook page with the year passing of Sue's, giving praise to God that's got her through and how I had stepped in to fill shoes of Sue's. And
Mhm.
so she just sent me an encouraging message saying, you're doing a great job. Keep it up as a dad. She needs to. And so it just
Nice.
organically turned into back and forth conversation. And we just kept talking, and here we are today. I mean, it's a whole nother
Mhm.
podcast and
Yeah.
story upon story within that whole thing, but it's like, wow. But, you know, I listened to the message, and to your point of when did I know I was ready, I didn't. I didn't know God was preparing me for
Yeah.
another person. And, but when I was listening to her message, I actually listened to it 3 times that word. Played it and was like, okay. Played it again, okay. And the third time, I didn't feel guilty for listening to it. I guess is the best way to describe it. Like, I didn't feel like I was cheating on Suze by listening to another female over Messenger. So it's like, okay, so I knew in that moment, okay, I am okay to move on or to move forward. So it's like, um, yeah, it just organically, God ordained it and just, it's
So
so crazy.
beautiful. It's
It
another
is.
Facebook success story because that's how Joel and I
Yeah,
re-met. And I love about all three of our stories is they're all God wrote our love stories. Like it wasn't the
yes,
dating apps, it wasn't all
yeah,
of
Hmm.
that stuff. Not like if you met your spouse that way, that's totally fine. I'm just
yeah.
saying, like I know all three of us had come to that place. Mark and I've talked about this a lot, like just letting God write our love stories,
Yeah.
and then
Mm.
Well, even
he's
even even more crazy than that. I remember you guys saying like pray specifically for what you want in your spouse. Like
yes.
Mark saying, I want a short life. That have to be. Well, the funny thing is,
Thank you, Lord.
yeah, because I wasn't looking. I didn't even feel I was ready to look, or even
Mm-hmm.
was considering looking. He brought me a woman that's equally yoked and is. We keep saying we're each other's puzzle piece. He
Mm.
knit us together so perfectly without even any prayer on that. Like he just brought me the perfect woman.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
And is
That's
she,
awesome.
I'm assuming, because it sounds like she's amazing. Like, how is she with, you talking about your Suzanne? What was your first wife's name?
Suzanne, yeah,
Suzanne. How
Suzanne,
is she about
yeah,
you? Like, talking about her, pictures of her? Like, how does she respond to
great.
grief and all of that?
She's been great. She knows a widower to begin with, and she has said, going to honor her in everything. And
That's
her and my
awesome.
daughter have a good relationship, and um,
Wow.
My daughter knows she's not filling her mom's shoes, but as she calls it, it's her bonus mom. So
Oh, so
yeah.
sweet.
That's awesome. Praise the Lord.
I
So
love
That's
that.
amazing.
because that was one of my um, initial concerns was how they were going to
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, of
take
Mhm.
that,
course.
you know.
Of course.
I've heard people saying they've got remarried 3 months, 6 months. It's like
Mm-hmm.
ours was a year, and in July, so it's like it wasn't quick, but I guess I don't know. In terms, like you guys
Well,
always say, there's no timeline. So
No,
yeah, there's
there's
no
not.
timeline, and what I'm saying this more so for the listeners,
yeah.
but just to say it to you, David, that you're here, you didn't choose this.
Mm-mm.
You didn't choose for that to happen,
No.
and so there's nothing. I don't feel like there's anything to feel guilty about at all. I think it's
No.
whenever your heart is ready, then it's been enough time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I like what Michelle often says, that like there is no equation of how long you
Mm.
grieve equals how much you loved.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
not how it is. And so
Mhm.
I'm saying it to you because you're here, but I
Mhm.
want the audience to hear that too, as we've said it before, but just to, reiterate it, that there's no timeline, and that whenever you're ready is the right time. So,
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Because
were you going to
I
ask
caught
something?
myself.
Oh, go ahead.
I caught myself doing that a couple times. Like,
Mm.
man, I was with her for 27 years. It's like, is this too quick? But it's like,
Doesn't matter.
but the more he showed the both of us that he ordained it. This is his story he's writing for the two of us. Like, okay, but who am I
Yeah.
to deny that? So
And it's for me, it was like, well, I mean, these are the cards I was dealt.
Mhm.
And, I don't want to be alone forever. I know that for sure.
yeah,
And the Lord is bringing me this amazing woman. I don't want to feel like there's nothing wrong with this. And I've been telling
No.
myself from the beginning, like, this is a blessing,
yeah,
and it is. And I feel like it's, and I view the same for, Michelle finding Joel, and for you finding
Mhm.
Amy, that it's the Lord rewarding our faithfulness. And
Mhm.
not saying that he, if you're not finding a spouse, that it doesn't mean he's not rewarding you,
Yeah.
but just everybody's story is different. And
Yeah.
for the three of us sitting here now, I feel like that the Lord does reward faithfulness, and it's the only gift we can give him. We know that.
Mhm.
It's the only thing
Yeah.
that's of any value to him. Like I was reading there in Isaiah 1, The Lord doesn't care about our burnt offerings.
There you go.
See, it all ties back. That was all
all
intentional, just tying it all
Yeah.
back together.
Yeah. Nice.
That's
So,
funny.
David, what advice would you give to a brand new widow or widower? Like,
Kind of tying on what Martin said. My father-in-law told me, "Be the best man or woman you can be for the Lord, and when it's His time, He'll bring someone into your life."
Mhm.
Praise
I've
that's
heard
what I
Mark
did.
say that too.
So
My
that's what I did.
pastor
I
told
just-
me that.
That's
Mhm.
good.
It makes
Yeah,
sense.
that's
I was
awesome,
like, okay,
David.
just focus on what He wants for you, and be the best. If He does bring someone else into your life, be the best man of
Mhm.
God you can be for that next
Mm.
person.
I love
Yeah,
that.
that's good.
Yeah,
So
Good advice.
that's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
stay
And I
engaged
think
in
that's
church.
say that
For
again.
sure. Stay engaged in church and grow.
Mm,
Get in a grief share. It helps.
yeah, that's awesome.
Mhm.
That's fantastic. And so I think we'll have to do, if Amy's up for it, I think it'd be cool
If she's
to,
up, yeah.
at a later
Yeah, I'd
date,
love to have
do
her
an
on.
episode with Amy and kind of see what it's like from her perspective to be
Mhm.
married to a widower. Because we haven't had that yet. So that would be neat.
I've got some like specific, because you're only the third widower we've had
Mhm.
as a guest. So maybe specific to being a widow, I don't feel like there's as many resources or as many
Mhm.
groups or as any things like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you have a
It is.
community
It
of,
is tough
yeah,
because guys don't talk.
exactly.
Yes.
So it's a lot
We're too
harder.
manly.
Well,
I know that.
I thought it was funny when we went into grief share. They have the policy of no dating
Oh,
within
within.
grief share.
Oh,
and
within.
I'm like, what did I get into here? I'm like, what's going on? Is this an issue? And they're like, oh yeah, it's sometimes it can be an issue. I'm like, wow, okay. But to
Oh,
sit
that's
in
funny.
there
interesting.
and there's only me and one other guy, and the rest of the room is all, had lost their husbands. So I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
this is a different dynamic.
totally.
So,
Wow,
So,
yeah.
so
yeah.
one of my questions is, so I know you found Mark as someone you could talk to,
Hmm.
the widower. Have you
Yeah.
found any other like communities or anything, like any resources for widowers? I'm just curious if you found anything.
No, actually, it's kind of
No.
hard. I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
through grief share, actually, I met another uh, guy my age. The last go round through grief share was 47. His name was Mark as well, and he just lost his wife
Oh, wow.
6 months before I lost mine. So
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I,
Yeah, I think that's
I,
something that's really needed is a widower
yeah,
community,
it's a
you
widower
know?
community. I looked for it, but it's like, everybody was just like, the guys don't want to talk.
I
They want to talk
know.
about
No,
their
What's
yeah.
wrong
kids.
with
So
you
it's like,
guys?
it's
Come
sitting
I
there
don't
on.
with
know,
you.
but it's like it's a reflection of our audience.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of how many how many. It's crazy because if you type in widow,
Oh,
it's
everything.
infinite
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
things that come up. Widower, it's like there are now I can't speak to his stuff other than saying he's a really nice guy. I met this guy in a Facebook group named John Polo.
Mm-hmm.
He is an author and a life coach. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know any full confession. I did not read the book that he sent me, but I thought he was a really great guy. He sent me a copy of his book just to be a nice guy. So I know there are a few here and there. I don't know if he's a Christian. I don't know anything about him. I am not endorsing him, nor I'm not endorsing him. I just don't know.
Yeah.
But he was very friendly with me. But yeah, there's just not a lot. I mean, our audience is what, 70, I think
Oh, I think
77% women
yeah, at least.
or 75 or something like that. But
What's the majority of the men go first? Isn't that right?
that's
Yes.
I
Yes.
think
That's a
there's
good point.
A pretty good significant point, yeah, where they go
Yeah.
first, and so I looked, but I couldn't find anything. So the best thing I could do is just grief share. So I went there
yeah,
with my
yeah.
daughter.
I mean, that's great that you've you've made it to this point, because I do follow your story, yours and Amy's story, and it's very uplifting, and I just love it. I love what the Lord can do through really dark and difficult circumstances,
Yeah.
and it's I've seen a lot of stories with widows, but for me personally, I haven't seen a lot of stories with widowers coming to this other side. And just as somebody who I relate to as a brother in Christ, it's been awesome to see like your and Amy's story unfold. And I remember when you first talked about her on Facebook, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I think I came and told Michelle, I said,
I
that guy
remember
I've been
that.
talking to on Facebook, he's one of our listeners. He totally started dating this girl, and like
Yeah.
they seem like super happy with each other, and I'm so excited. I'm so pumped for them. And
Yeah.
and then now here you are married. And
Yeah.
so, congratulations to both
Yes,
of you on that.
congratulations. I always get so excited when I see. So I have a lot of widow friends on Facebook, and when they start dating and they announce, I get so
Yeah.
excited for them because it's like just this beauty from ashes. Like there's
Yeah,
something
it
different
very
about a
much is.
second love, where it's like for me personally, like I enjoy every single second, just every little thing about it is so great.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's something that Joel told me, that he has a whole different background, but like what he loves about me is my perspective on life, because I enjoy every little moment, because we know
Yeah.
how short it is.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's
And
really,
just for everybody listening, it's not for everybody to
Right.
find love again, and we
Right.
know that, and we've said that
Yeah.
a lot. But for you personally, it might be finding healing. That is, finding joy again and things like that could be equally exciting. But for the three of us sitting here, finding love again is what we're talking about. So, anyways, well, Michelle, did you have anything else? David, you guys have anything else?
I think that was it. I really appreciate you sharing your story, and it's so great to have widowers share, because like we said, we don't have very many. So I know there's guys out there like, thank you so much. We want to hear from another widower, not another widow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Glad I could share.
So come on, guys, step it up.
Step
Be our
it up.
guest.
Yeah.
They're out there. They're out there.
Yeah, they are. Well, thanks a lot, David. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's been fantastic. So I will pray for us.
All right. Sounds good.
Lord, thank you so much for bringing this man into my life personally. It's been inspirational for me, and that he was willing to come on here and share his story. And Lord, I just thank you so much for the blessing that you brought into his life in the way of Amy, and just healing, and for his children, Lord. And I'd just like to pray over this family, the new family and the old family, so to speak, all the children involved and everybody, and just pray for continued blessings and guidance and wisdom in this relationship and love story. And for anybody listening, Lord, I pray that you would bring them peace into their hearts, that for those in the beginning, that you would provide help, means, security, your hand on their shoulder, walking them through this season of life. And we just thank you so much, Lord. And it's in Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, you know what I'm going to say. If you liked this podcast, give it a little ding, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, all the places. Also, if you want to be a guest, we have taken a poll in 2 places, on Facebook, and I did another poll. It's like unanimous. Everybody wants a combination of just me and Mark rambling on our episodes. And then they want to also have guests. So we really want to have more guests. There is a link in the show notes. This is how we're doing it now. If you want to be a guest, fill out this form and we will get back to you. We'd love to hear your story, and there are people out there who'd love to hear your story. Everybody's got a story to share. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if God allowed it, like, we want to allow him to use it. Like, we went through these stories. All of our stories are unique, similar in some ways, but unique. And people can benefit from hearing from you. And don't be scared. It's just like having a conversation with friends. So it's pretty fun. Also, as you guys know, we are sponsored by Widow Goals, which is my nonprofit. And what we do is we do podcast and social media support, scholarships for grief recovery, which, side note, so grief recovery is absolutely amazing, taking people 7 weeks through unpacking the grief that they've had. And there's so much to that. If you want to know more about that, definitely in the show notes, you can book a call with me to learn more about how that works. I do them on Zoom. I've got people literally all over the world. There's someone in Egypt right now doing one with me.
That's so cool.
It's so cool. Yeah. And I've got like Egypt and like states all over. It's so much fun, but I love doing that. So I'd love to talk with you more. And if you've been blessed by this podcast and want to give back to us, there's a link in the show notes. So I think that's all the things. If you want to email us, widowedtoosoon@widowgoals.org. You can find us on Facebook, all the stuff. Okay.
All the stuff.
I think that's it. So thank you so much, David, for being with us. Yes. And thank you, audience, for listening. And we'll see you next time. All
Goodbye.
right.
God bless.
Bye.